today where there are several 100 million people starving to death. They're starving to death right now. All over this country today, there is a certain demoralization. And the demoralization is that some people believe that what goes on in the White House and what goes on in the Congress reflects the will of the American people. And by assembling here today, as the Rainbow Coalition and its other groups from 46 states in America, what we are saying very loud and clear is that Ronald Reagan and his billionaire friends do not represent America, but we do. In some of the largest cities in America, 50% of the kids are not graduating high school. The cost of college education in this country is zooming up, so you have to be a wealthy person to send your kid to college. There was once a dream that my parents had and many people's parents had, that if you work hard and you go to school, you can get a college education. But what people like this gentleman do not know is, for example, that in Scandinavia, in Sweden, you've had socialist governments for decades, that in fact that country is probably in most respects more democratic than the United States. They have 80 or 90% of the people voting. They have strong labor unions. They have a more open media. They have a healthcare system guaranteeing healthcare to all of the people. Not to say that that's utopia. But at a time when the wealthiest people of this country have seen a tremendous increase in their income, while at the same time the standard of living of working people and poor people has declined, I will be damned if I will vote for a proposal which will stick it to the middle class and the working people. And Mr. Speaker, I've got a problem. I've got a problem with a president and a Congress which allows 5 million children to go hungry, 2 million people to sleep out on the streets, cities to become breeding grounds for drugs and violence. And they say, we're getting tough on crime. If you want to get tough on crime, let's deal with the causes of crime. Let's demand that every man, woman, and child in this country have a decent opportunity and a decent standard of living. Let's not keep putting poor people into jail and disproportionately punishing blacks. While our children go hungry and sleep out on the streets, lack adequate health care or educational opportunity, the wealthiest people in this country have grown far richer while their tax burden has declined. We have an approach to campaign financing which, to a very large degree, allows wealthy people and major corporations to buy and sell politicians. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and ordinary Americans are shut out of the political system. The United States today is one of 2 nations in the industrialized world that does not have a national health care system. That has to do with campaign finance reform. The United States today, the chief executive officers are seeing their salaries soar, and the gap between the rich and the poor grows wider. 10 million Americans are unemployed. That has to do with campaign finance reform. The system, by and large, is owned and controlled by big money interests, and the President of the United States and much of the Congress does the work of protecting the big corporations and the wealthy people who control the economic and political life of this nation. This country, this great country, this democracy, is evolving into an oligarchy. And an oligarchy is a country in which a few people have tremendous wealth and tremendous power and exercise that wealth and that power over all. We have seen a situation where we give huge tax breaks to the wealthy and you have 2 million people sleeping out on the street. Billions of dollars into all kinds of obsolete weapon systems, and you have 5 million children who are hungry. Let us give hope to people in America today who have lost hope. Let us provide jobs for the jobless, housing for the homeless, food for the hungry. Workers in the United States today are working longer hours, significantly longer hours, taking less vacation time than they used to take. And is there any wonder why so many millions of Americans feel stressed out? They need to work longer hours, they need to work overtime in order to compensate for the real decline in their wages. Let's talk about welfare for the rich and the powerful. Now, we start off from a proposition that the wealthiest 1% of the population in this country owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. When we talk about the growth of the economy, what we should ask ourselves is who is gaining that income. And what is clearly going on is the lion's share, the overwhelming amount of the growth in income is going to the very, very wealthiest people,
while the vast majority of the people are seeing a decline in their real incomes.
I find it ironic that it is the taxpayers of this country who are going to have to bail out banks that have made billions and billions of dollars investing in Asia. Is it morally right that CEOs of large corporations now make over 500 times what their workers make and seem to make more money to the degree that they lay off American workers? Walmart has replaced General Motors as the major employer in America, paying people starvation wages rather than living wages. We can fight terrorism, protect the American people without undermining the basic constitutional rights which make us a free country. They understand that our trade policies are failing when they note that our trade deficit is huge and growing larger every single year. And it seems to me, Madam President, that before we go forward again in pursuit of a failing trade agenda, we might want to sit back, take a moratorium, understand why our trade policies are failing, and then put together trade agreements that work for the working people and the middle class of this country rather than just the CEOs of large multinational corporations. The wealthiest 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1%, 300,000 men, women, and children now earn more income than do the bottom 150 million Americans. No matter how many children live in poverty, no matter how high the unemployment numbers are, they want more and more and more. And I say enough is enough. And you want to know why the American people are cynical about what goes on in Washington? You want to know why the Congress of the United States has an extremely low level of support or favorability? It is because the American people know they are getting ripped off. You got millions of people today who are working longer hours and their income is going down. Their wages are going down. This grotesque level of inequality is immoral. It is bad economics. It is unsustainable. This type of rigged economy is not what America is supposed to be about. This has got to change. And as your president, together, we are going to change it. When we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. And I pledge to you that every day I will fight for the public interest, not the corporate interest. I will not abandon any segment of American society, whether you're gay or black or Latino, poor or working class, just because it is politically expedient at a given time. So let us go forward together, and let us tell the Republicans that their reactionary agenda may work for the billionaires, but not for ordinary Americans, and we are going to defeat them. Thank you all very much.
So before I start talking about this video, I just want to let you all know that yes, that video was made for Bernie's 2016 campaign. So if anything, that supports me even more because that video was made in 2016. He's continuing to say more populist things in 2017, 2018, 2019, and of course in 2020. So the first thing this video makes me think of is Elizabeth Warren just drop out. Because in reality, people like Elizabeth Warren are just like Bernie Sanders except less consistent. They're like the half-measure version of Bernie Sanders. Hey, do you want to support the half-measure, inconsistent version of Bernie Sanders? Just support Elizabeth Warren, because in a nutshell, that's kind of what she is. I respect her, but but it's just that she's just like Bernie, but less consistent. That's the reality. And I think it's safe to assume that Bernie Sanders is one of the, if not the, most populist politicians in American history. And you can tell that from this video. Now, if you were to dig into, let's say, Elizabeth Warren's record, you wouldn't see it consistently. I mean, for goodness sakes, she used to be a Republican. She voted for the Iraq War. She agreed to Trump's military budget increase. She supported Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. And lastly, for the points I've written down, Bernie Sanders is one of the few politicians who actually fights 100... Bernie Sanders is one of the few politicians who actually fights 100% of the time for the good of the American people, unlike other politicians who simply use populism as a tool for their own personal benefit. Now, I'm sorry if I really was bashing Elizabeth Warren there, but I was just trying to use her as an example to aid Bernie Sanders. Because when you look at politicians like, let's say, Andrew Yang, or, of course, Elizabeth Warren, as I mentioned previously, or even somebody like Julian Castro or Kamala Harris, they either are or were running for the 2020 presidential election with populism as a tool, because you don't see this type of consistency in their record. They just popped out of nowhere. I mean, the best example is Elizabeth Warren, because in 2016, she straight up supported Hillary Clinton, the status quo candidate. And then in 2020, she comes out and she's something like, I'm a progressive, look at me, I'm for Medicare for all, I'm for all these things. So you can see that these politicians, worst case scenario, are straight up using populism as a tool to manipulate the American people in a way, or they just straight up are inconsistent and a bit flip-floppy. And look, sure, I value as a politician if you change. Thank you to Elizabeth Warren, because you have changed, right? You changed your views, you become more progressive, but you gotta hand it to Bernie, because this whole entire time, he has been a populist politician. And this video, I remember when I first saw it, I was almost teary-eyed. Almost, because it really got me emotional. I was really starting to think, this is what makes me support Bernie Sanders. This one video inspires people to support him. Even if, let's say, you're a Warren supporter, no disrespect to you, or you're a Yang supporter, or a Tulsi supporter, or even a Joe Biden supporter, or a Trump supporter, you've got to say this video is pretty inspiring. Because even the Trump supporters, they can tell that Bernie Sanders is a populist politician who actually cares about the American people and isn't just fighting for his own personal benefit. You have Trump. It isn't just with Bernie Sanders, but it's also with Andrew Yang. You have Trump supporters going on live TV and saying, you know what, I don't like most Democrats, but with Andrew Yang or Bernie Sanders, they actually make sense because they know what they're saying. They're intelligent. They appeal to me. They care about the people. So it's ironic, because although somebody like Joe Biden is to the center, and if anything should be more liked by Trump supporters support Bernie Sanders. Because sure, there is that whole element of socialism. Although Bernie is not a socialist, he is a proclaimed democratic socialist. Although his ideas are more social democratic. I know it's confusing. I'm gonna make a video on this, because he claims he's a democratic socialist, but his ideas align more with social democracy, which is a relatively new term. So, although this guy is a social democrat, or even viewed by Trump supporters as a straight-up socialist, or by people like Trump a communist, Trump supporters still prefer Bernie Sanders over Joe Biden. Why? Because sure, Joe Biden's the center, but they can clearly see that Bernie Sanders is consistent, and even if they believe he's wrong on his ideas, they can tell that he has good intentions, because he actually wants to fight for the people. Even Trump supporters, he wants to fight for everybody across the aisle. He isn't just saying, dear Democrats, you all deserve equality. He's speaking to everybody in the United States. So once again, even if this video doesn't make you support Bernie Sanders, it definitely makes you feel inspired, nevertheless. So, thank you for watching this video, guys. This just goes to show Bernie Sanders come on, I always get that word all right. Consistency. So, dear Elizabeth Warren, I'm sorry if I really was badgering you in this video. I was just using you as a comparison to Bernie Sanders. So, dear Warren supporters, I respect you. I don't dislike Elizabeth Warren. I actually approve of her, just not as much as Bernie Sanders. So, as of now, it's February 3rd. It is a big day. If you're watching this before 7 p.m., then good for you, because I can warn you that at 7 p.m. tonight, Eastern time at least, Iowa will be voting in the Democratic Party presidential primaries of 2020. As of now, Bernie Sanders is in the lead in Iowa, as well as New Hampshire even, because he's been surging lately after the Warren attacks and the Hillary attack and all the other establishment attacks against Bernie Sanders, Democratic establishment attacks against Bernie Sanders. Ever since they attacked him, he's been surging. So keep attacking Bernie, he'll just keep surging, because once the mainstream media, which is seen as out of touch, attacks a populist candidate, the people are going to say, hey, get away from him. This guy's obviously fighting for the people, because why would the mainstream media be attacking him? So, see you guys later. Watch out for the Iowa caucus. My prediction is that Bernie Sanders will win, but it isn't a margin of error since he's at about 24% in polling for Iowa. I think Joe Biden is next in like 20%. So, my prediction is he'll win Iowa, but I'm not 100% sure, since once again it's in a margin of error. See you guys later, and bye.